So, did you enjoy the last one? All about my terrible indiscretions as a youth. I hope you did. It keep freezing. These Sony phones suck. I hope the new ones are better because let me tell you, I'm never buying a Sony again. Anyway, I told you I was going to tell you another couple of confessionals. These are I broke my own first so that people could say, oh well, he's not just bad mouthing people who can't defend themselves, but he's bad mouthing himself as well because he's like that, a good guy. So I'm going to tell you about Rick. Now, Rick's a totally fictional name. Okay, his name's Rick, and his dad was not Abner, and he did not go to Dunmurry congregation, and his brother was not a celebrated Gilead graduate called David. And anyway, Rick was briefly my pioneer partner back when I was somewhat living it. And I'm going to tell you, I should have added this actually in my last one, but I'm going to tell you how Rick and me made ours, okay? This is a good advice. And if you're a fader or you're a pioneer who's watching this, which you're way out of your depth here, guy, you should just move back somewhere else. But if you're a pioneer watching this, I'm going to teach you how to make 10 hours in one day. That's brilliant, isn't it? So I would get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, right? And then I would go down to the bus station. Right, I'd leave the house by 8. I'd go down to the bus stop, which is about 5 seconds from my house, my mum and dad's house, and I would just blow out a few tracts to people who'd patiently take it. Then I would walk to Rick's house. Right, Rick was about 4 miles from me, and I'd get there about 9:30. And then we would walk to the next bus stop, and he would give out some tracts. Right, so now we've all started our time. Then Rick and I would walk to Belfast, which is about 5 miles away, and we'd walk all the way there. We'd go around all the comic book shops. We would go to McDonald's, and then we would hand out a few tracts for like 5 minutes. Just say we did, keep show our faces, and then we would walk back. Okay. After the entire day was spent, we'd be dropping off Rick about 5 o'clock, and he would then do a return visit on the way home, and he would get a staggering 8 hours. Now, because I live further away, I would then walk home, do a return visit near my house, and I would post a staggering 10 hours on the field service. That was good work, right? You only have to do that 6 days a week because I was a regular auxiliary, so that's all I ever mustered, and that's the kind of spiritual work you were getting for no pay from me. But anyway, I'm going to tell you about Rick Peel. Oh, I said his name. It's not his name. So I'm going to tell you about Rick. Rick, as you know, I just told you we went to the comic book stores. I had a tiny collection of comic books. But Rick, he lived in a caravan beside his mum and dad's house. Americans, would know it as a double wide. It was a lovely one, beautiful place to live, especially for 17, 18-year-old kid. It's really wonderful. But Rick had a love, and in all fairness to him, he's got an animation company now. And I don't know how successful it is, but Rick is a very talented artist. In all genuineness about him. But Rick loved comic books, and particularly the form of comic books known as graphic art. Okay, graphic art, and it was all those brooding Batmans. I'm Batman. I can do Batman. I'm Batman, and it was all that kind of stuff. All scary, blood everywhere, drenched, and he had slain the horned god. Which are all artists. The art was all written or all done and drawn by a guy called Simon Bisley, who was an awesome artist. For comic books and graphic art. But it was all horrific stuff, It dealt with murder and rape and everything, and war and violence galore and demonism and just horrific stuff if you're a Jehovah's Witness. But when you're, 17 kid, brilliant, awesome stuff to read, And he had so much of this stuff, right? And he hid it all in his double wide. And the reason he hid it is because his dad, who I've made up the name Abner was the presiding overseer of Dunmurry congregation, okay? And Abner would be horrified if he saw this, okay? Now, I always liked Abner. I've heard from a lot of people, who sort of were elders at the time, that he was a disingenuous prick, but I found him to be quite pleasant. He was an art teacher. In fact, I ended up doing an art GCSE, which is, like a high school grade in America. I did an art exam with him, and he was very nice to me, and I very much liked his company. That said, he was still the presiding overseer. So one day, Rick's mum went into his double wide to give it a clean because she was that kind of mummy. She went into the double wide, and oh my God, the horror! She found his graphic novel collection. She found the disgusting stuff within, and she was grossed out. So went to Abner. Richard, because he's the kind of man that I've told you is. He's an awesome guy. Saw the mounting evidence, saw his pioneer stealth being taken off the roll, and looked at his dad straight in the eye, and he said, "Those aren't mine. Neil Gardner hides those from his mum and dad in my caravan." Right? Swear to God he did this. So, all these horrific demon-possessed books, right, were now mine, apparently, according to Avner. So, the next time I puddle up the road to come to see my pioneer partner, I'm called in to the presiding overseer of Dunmurray, who gives me the most appalling lecture and telling off about these books and about how I would drag his innocent son into this. Why would you do that? Anyway, so I did. I looked at him and I what do you say to this guy? He's, you can't just say, "Hey, your son's a liar," because you know how much trouble you're going to get him into. So I'm like, "Okay, I'm so sorry, Abner. I'll never do this again. I have heard you. I have listened. And it's gone to my heart. And I feel bad. What'll I do?" So Abner says, "Well, what you need to do, Neil, is you need to take them out of my house." So I thought, okay. But then a little light dawned on me, and I thought, hang on a second. Richard really fucked me over here, didn't he? I think he deserves some punishment. So what I did is I said, "Okay, no problem, Abner." And I picked up my boxes of hundreds of pounds worth of graphic novels, and I walked out the house with him while Richard watched incredulously as his babies disappeared out the house. And I walked home 3 miles with about £300 worth of graphic novels. And then I got a phone call from Richard saying, "When can I collect those?" And I went, "I don't know when you could collect those, because I sold those. I took them down to the comic book shop and they just snatched them off me. I got some good money for them, so thanks very much for that, Richard." He was horrified, and it pretty much ended our friendship. But I can say right now, I am not guilty. So that is my story of Rick. Rick later went on to quit the pioneer role, move in with a guy called Saul. I'm going to tell you all about Saul. Saul was a douche. And Saul Shadrach, if anyone from Ireland knows Saul Shadrach, I want you to comment, okay? Because, good God, he was a tool. Anyway, moved in with him, and then he became the bass player in a rock band. And they were quite good. They were okay for Jehovah's Witnesses. But then that led to the wacky-backy and to bad things. So I'll get to that later. I hope you enjoyed this. And that was the story of how I made about 200 quid. Take care.